What's up, everybody? My name is Nick Murphy of the Brothers Murph, and this is 5 games that I actually prefer to play solo. Now, there are lots of games that you can play on your own. You can play one player, and every day it seems like there's more and more games catering to solo gamers because there are a lot of them out there. And because so many of these games have solo variants and so many of them are so good, there's actually a couple that I honestly prefer more than playing a multiplayer version of it. So let's go ahead and get to number 5. Number 5 is The Networks. The Networks is a great game where you are a TV producer and you are running a TV station. You have to put different shows into different time slots. Some of those shows require you to have stars on them. Some of those shows require you to have ads on them. And you're working in pure prime time. You're trying to fill out 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and 10 p.m. for those prime time spots, and different shows will give you different amount of viewers. In this game, viewers are your points because of course you want the most viewers. And this game is so much fun, but the reason why I like it more solo as opposed to mostly a 2-player game, which is how we usually play games, because I'm usually playing games with my brother Mike, I like it solo because the 2-player game is actually a little bit different than a higher player count game in that you have to constantly essentially get rid of stuff. So every other turn, you will essentially have to flip over a card and then get rid of certain things, get rid of certain shows, get rid of certain ads, certain stars, and that's essentially simulating a higher player count game. So you already have to do that in a 2-player game, but the solo game, you have to do that as well, which makes sense because you don't want to have bevy of options. You want to have some limited options, and so the game will constantly get rid of stuff for you to again simulate a higher player count game. So you're already having to do that in a 2-player game, but in a 1-player game, it's just a little bit simpler and just a little bit easier because just every other turn you flip over one of these cards, it'll tell you what to get rid of, and then you can just move right on to your next turn. And on top of that, the solo game is actually quite difficult because to win the solo game, you have to get 265 viewers, which is a lot. A good score for this game is generally like 200, 250, maybe 265. You really have to pull out all the stops and play a great game. So for me, playing a solo game is basically just like playing a 2-player game, except for it's a little bit easier to manage, and I really like the challenge of this solo game. And it's just such a fun game. I can just really get into it and laugh at all the weird, silly shows they have because they're all like puns on normal shows. It's really great, and I actually prefer it solo. Number 4 could really be 2 games, and I'm gonna go ahead and choose Turing Machine. Turing Machine is a deduction game where you essentially are asking this kind of analog computer different questions, and you're trying to find the right sequence of 3 numbers. The numbers are between 1 and 5, and you're gonna have a sequence of 3. So it could be like 5, 1, 2, or 3, 2, 4, or something like that, and you're asking questions of the computer because one of the questions out there might be like, blue is more than yellow, because there's blue, yellow, and purple as well. And so you're like, okay, blue is more than yellow, so I know yellow can't be these numbers, because you just start deducing things down like that. Mike, there'll be a card right here. Mike did a really good explanation of this game. It's kind of hard to describe, but basically you're trying to do deduction to find these sequence of 3 numbers. Now, in a multiplayer game, you are all doing the same thing. You're trying to find the same sequence of 3 numbers, and you're all asking different stuff of the computer, and you're all kind of working on your own, just doing it, and you're basically trying to get it faster than anyone else. And I just don't honestly care about that. I just really want to sit down with this puzzle and try and figure it out on my own. If I'm playing this game in a multiplayer way, I start getting stressed out because I want to hopefully get there before anyone else, and then I feel like I'm not that great at these kinds of games, and so I always just end up losing. And so it's like, I would really just like to sit down with this puzzle and just play and just enjoy it and really get lost in the system and not really worry about how long I'm taking, not worry about whether or not I'm going to win or whether or not I'm going to get it faster than this person over here. I can just sit there and play, and I really like that. Another game that's kind of like that is The Search for Planet X. It's another game where you are searching now for Planet X instead of a 3-number sequence, and in this game it's all deduction, and it's the same thing where in a solo game you kind of just get to do it. You are going against a bot, which kind of simulates another player, but like you just get to sit there and deduce on your own. And in these kinds of puzzles, I just kind of want to sit down in my own world and just get into it, zen out, and just melt my brain with this kind of puzzle. And so Turing Machine and also something like The Search for Planet X are my number 4 because they're just really great solo, and I just don't care about the multiplayer game. Number 3 is a big old game called Burn Cycle. Burn Cycle is a game where you are robots kind of staging a robot uprising, but it's not really a violent one. It's actually a game that's really simulating a heist because you all use robots, you work for a big evil corporation, and you're essentially trying to break into different rooms in the corporation and not get detected by the different guards around. It's a big, heavy chip theory game. The production quality is absolutely incredible, and it's really, really fun. But the thing is, this is one of those games where it's just, I don't have a great reason why I prefer it solo. It's just, when you play it solo, you're gonna play 2 different robots, and I can just kind of get into like the simulation of like, okay, I'm gonna move this robot over here, move this one over here, and I can kind of treat it more as a puzzle than I can as like a big cooperative game. You can see a pattern here. I like puzzly games, and I like puzzly games to kind of be on my own. I like to be able to just sit down and get into the puzzle. And on top of that, Burn Cycle is a big game, a long game, has a whole bunch of different scenarios you can do, a couple different corporations you can go into. There's like 24, 25 different scenarios just in the base game. And I just also know that Mike and I will never have time to play this game together. Mike has a baby. We're just not gonna have the time. It's a big, long game. And so this is also one of those games that I know if I wanna play through, I'm gonna have to play solo. And I'm actually okay with that because I learned the game solo, and it's really, really fun. And I just love the theme of this game. And just being alone and playing it means I can really get into that theme and get into like the robot uprising and, oh, I'm gonna go do this, and I'm gonna have this person go over here and do this, and I'm gonna have this robot go over here and do this. And you could really just puzzle the whole thing out and work on your own. Again, not worry about how long you're taking, not worry about like being social. You can kind of just sit there and just get into your puzzle. And it's just really, really fun. So I absolutely love Burn Cycle, and I really enjoy playing it solo. Number 2 was kind of a revelation for me, and that is Wingspan. I actually, at this point, think I prefer playing Wingspan solo. And the reason is because in Wingspan, I just want to make a big, crazy bird engine and just see what happens. In Wingspan, you are bird watchers and you're collecting all these different bird cards, and the bird cards have different abilities on them, a whole bunch of different abilities I'm not gonna get into, but nonetheless, you're putting them in these different rows, and then you're activating those rows and activating those birds, and you can just make these really crazy combinations of cards. And in the solo game, I get to just focus on that. I don't have to worry about like trying to like outdo other players. You are working against an AI, so you do have an opponent that can win. And so you do still have a little bit of that, but like in the end, more and more with Wingspan, there's so many different bird cards, and there's way more coming, because let's be honest, they're gonna be expanding this game forever. This is one of those games where like, I just want to hang out and make a ridiculous broken bird engine, and I just wanna see what happens. Number 1 may not be a surprise to some people who watch our channel for a while, and this is XLibris. XLibris is a really, really fun game where you are running a fantastical library. So you're like Bigfoot running a library, or a gelatinous cube running a library. It's all set in this fantasy world, very, very cute art, very cute theme, but you are running a library, and you're collecting these shelf cards, and these shelves will have different books on them, and you're trying to collect certain kinds of books. Other books are like banned, so you don't want those kinds of books, and you're trying to make out your shelf, essentially your library. But there's all these different ways you have to do it. There are certain books that you don't want. There are certain books that your library really focuses on, so you really want to get those books. There's some other books you're like, I don't really need this or need that, but then you also want like a really even amount of books, and then your shelf has to be like square. There's all these different things to think about. As you can see, there's so much going on that, again, I just want to sit down, I just want to get into that puzzle. This game is also plagued by not great graphic design, so a multiplayer version of this game is actually relatively hard to play because it's a worker placement game, and you're placing your little gnomes out on these various spaces, but the text on those spaces is very, very small, so it's hard to see what happens on that space unless you like pick it up and then read it. And in a solo game, I can just have everything right in front of me. It's not hard to read. I can just sit there and enjoy the game on my own. And it's just fun to get into that. This is one of those games where there's so much going on, and there's so many different things to manage. Your shelf has to be alphabetized, all these different things that it's so much to focus on that I can't focus on other players anyway, so I might as well just focus on myself. And then in the solo game, you're playing against the public library who's just like gobbling up cards all day. And it's easy. They just constantly are getting cards, and that's it. It's all you really have to do. And I just love XLibris, but I really, really only want to play it solo. The last couple years, the only way I've ever played it is solo, and I've talked about it for years now of like, this is a game that like I really prefer solo. XLibris is my number one. It's such a good game, but it's really a game that I only want to play on my own. So that is my quick list of 5 games that I prefer solo. Down in the comments below, let me know what games you prefer solo, if any, or maybe you're just not a solo gamer, but I do honestly think you should try it out. It's really fun, and especially in big puzzly games, at least for me, I can just sit on my own and get into that puzzle. But nonetheless, make sure to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. We are the Brothers Murphy. We like to do lots of different kinds of board game videos. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you later.